You saved the emergency fund. You hit the number. You did exactly what the finance internet told you to do. So why do you still feel one bad month away from panic? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your emergency fund probably isn't broken. You're just asking it to do the wrong job. Most people treat emergency funds like one magic number. $1,000, 3 months, 6 months, done. Congratulations, you are now financially bulletproof. Except, not really. A starter emergency fund is not financial armor. It is more like a tiny umbrella in a thunderstorm. Helpful? Yes. Will it protect you from a job loss, a medical crisis, or your car making a noise that sounds expensive? Absolutely not. That is where the outdated advice breaks. A lot of people hit their first emergency fund goal and expect to finally relax, but instead they still feel exposed, still behind, still one car repair away from chaos. That does not mean saving was pointless. It means the first fund was misunderstood. A starter emergency fund has one job: stop small disruptions from becoming full financial disasters. A busted tire, an unexpected copay, a higher utility bill, a small repair, a week where groceries suddenly cost like they were imported by private jet. That is what your first buffer is for. It is not income replacement. It is not long-term security. It is not 3 months of rent. It is not Batman. It is Robin. Useful, but you still need backup. The first mistake is treating that buffer like the finish line. You hit $1,000, exhale, move on, and assume the system is done. But the first emergency fund is not the end of stability. It is the beginning. If your cash flow is chaotic, your bills are too high, your debt is pressuring you, and every surprise expense knocks you sideways, of course you will not feel fully safe yet. The fund did its job. It just was never designed to do every job. The second mistake is keeping the money too accessible. Emergency money should be reachable, but there's a difference between accessible and casual. If your emergency fund sits in the same checking account as groceries, subscriptions, takeout, and random "I deserve this" purchases, it's not really an emergency fund. It's just money. And money that is easy to reach will eventually get reached. The goal is not to make it impossible to access. The goal is to add enough friction that it stays protected. A separate savings account works well. A high-yield savings account is even better because the money earns something while it waits. The third mistake is thinking an emergency fund can fix broken cash flow. This is huge. If you spend more than you bring in every month, the emergency fund becomes a slow-motion snack for your budget. It gets nibbled away by subscriptions, late fees, debt pressure, overspending, and random expenses that weren't really emergencies. That's how people get stuck in the build, drain, rebuild, drain cycle. They save the money, use it for something half-emergency, feel guilty, start over, then repeat the whole thing 3 months later. After a while, the fund starts to feel fake, like it never stays, like safety is always temporary. But sometimes the answer is not more discipline. Sometimes the answer is more clarity. What counts as an emergency? What does not? What belongs in your normal monthly budget? And what actually deserves to touch the fund? That distinction matters. So here's the better way to think about it. There are 3 levels of emergency money. Most people are trying to get stage 3 peace from stage 1 savings, and it doesn't work. Stage 1 is the first buffer. For many people, that's around $1,000. Its job is simple: absorb small shocks so they don't turn into debt, panic, or missed bills. Stage 2 is the real emergency fund. This is usually 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, not your full lifestyle, not restaurants, shopping, vacations, and the streaming services you forgot you still had. Essential expenses: rent or mortgage, utilities, food, insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments, the basics required to keep your life running. And this number is often lower than people think. For example, maybe your normal monthly spending is $4,500, but in survival mode, your essentials might be closer to $3,000. That means a 3-month emergency fund is not $13,500, it's $9,000. Still serious, but much less terrifying. Stage 3 is the income stability buffer. This is about time. It gives you room if your income drops, work slows down, your hours get cut, or life changes suddenly. It's especially useful if you're self-employed, freelance, commission-based, or in an industry where income is unpredictable. This is not just about covering one surprise bill. It's about keeping your life functioning while you adjust. So if your first emergency fund isn't making you feel safe, you may be asking a Stage 1 tool to create a Stage 3 feeling. It can't do that by itself. Here's the realistic sequence. First, build the starter buffer. Get enough in place to stop every inconvenience from becoming a crisis. Second, stabilize your cash flow. Know what comes in, know what goes out. Find the leaks, cancel what you don't use, stop letting tiny expenses form a financial marching band that walks your paycheck out the door. Third, protect the fund. Keep it separate from daily spending but still accessible in a real emergency. Fourth, rebuild quickly when you use it. Using the fund is not failure. That's literally why it exists. After using it, shift into refill mode immediately. Even a small automatic transfer every payday helps. Fifth, grow from first buffer to real emergency fund. Calculate your survival expenses and work towards 3 to 6 months of that number. And sixth, if your income is unstable, start building an income stability buffer. Because real safety isn't just surviving one surprise expense, it's knowing your life can handle disruption. So if your first emergency fund isn't making you feel safe, you may be asking a Stage 1 tool to create a Stage 3 feeling. It can't do that by itself. Here's the real next step. Build the starter buffer. Stabilize your cash flow, protect the fund, rebuild quickly when you use it, grow from first buffer to real emergency fund, and build an income stability buffer. Because real safety isn't just surviving one surprise expense, it's knowing your life can handle disruption. So if you saved your first emergency fund and still don't feel safe, don't assume it failed. It probably worked. It just revealed the next thing you need. Maybe you need to grow the fund. Maybe you need lower fixed costs. Maybe you need fewer money leaks. Maybe you need a clearer plan for what counts as an emergency. Because financial safety doesn't come from one number alone. It comes from layers: a first buffer, better cash flow, a real emergency fund, a refill system, and enough time to recover when life gets weird. Think of your emergency fund as the first brick in a larger structure, an important brick, but still just the beginning. And if you're rebuilding from zero, the next step isn't just saving harder, it's cutting the things that keep pulling you backward. That's why in the next video, I'm breaking down the first things I would stop buying if I had to rebuild from zero. Watch that one next because it pairs directly with this.